Some people are wary of the jab because of the short development time. Can you comment on the fact that the benefit of mRNA is that proteins are produced in our bodies much quicker than could be grown in a lab in an egg? A good thing. IOW. What's IOW? I don't know what IOW is.
I'll comment on that.
Yeah.
So first of all, I will say I saw an absolutely atrocious cartoon designed to explain that the rapid development and authorization of these vaccines did not really cut any corners. Anyway, it's worth looking up. I found it very misleading. That's not so much about the development, it's about the regulatory process. But
yeah, but I mean, the development is quite a separate question.
Yeah.
The ability to rapidly develop mRNA vaccines is absolutely a plus here. It's if mRNA vaccines turn out to be as awesome as we are assured they are, the rapid development time is the thing that prevents future pandemics potentially.
Right. And one can imagine these vaccines, I'm not saying that they are, but you can imagine these vaccines being a total disaster with respect to their long-term harms, and that we would figure out, if we can do a proper analysis of what happens here, that we would figure out what about them is causing that harm, and that they can be refined into something useful and safe enough to deploy, which then means that you could have ultra rapid generation and deployment, and then presumably it would be possible to shorten the regulatory path, in accordance, so that you could actually respond very quickly to new emerging pathogens.
Yeah. I guess I would say, so there's maybe we are lumping two things into development, and I don't think either of us is in terms of how we're thinking about it. But when people think rapid development time, they may be thinking about not just the R&D stage, but also the clinical trial stage. And so, the lack of long-term clinical trials, which would have, required a few years here, is part of our concern for sure, largely because the mRNA technology itself is not vetted yet. That emergency use authorization for a kind of technology in a new instantiation that had already been used successfully in previous pandemics, say, would be, I would be having a very different reaction to the lack of the clinical trial data. But the rapid ability to actually develop the vaccine itself, as opposed to the testing of whether or not it's safe and effective, is exactly a feature of the mRNA vaccine technology, and there should be nothing concerning about that.
Yeah, I think you've identified something important that we haven't been clear about yet, which is you've got two things requiring a safety test, a proper safety test. Mm-hmm. One of them has to do with the basic principle of delivery, and one of them has to do with the content of the message that's being delivered. And
yes,
were we 10 years into mRNA delivery mechanisms and simply testing this particular informational content and the spike protein that it creates, and whether that spike protein properly lodges in the surface of the cell, and whether it frees itself and does damage on its own, then we would be in a much better position to say, all right, here's what we don't know.
Right.
When in fact, what we don't know is everything. Right. And you don't want to be in a welcome to complex systems. The last thing you want to say is, well, actually, we don't know anything, because not only have we never dealt with the spike protein before, and we're going to get surprised by things like, lo and behold, the spike protein itself is destructive of tissue, right? But we also have how are you going to get it into the cells problem? And we've got a fancy new technology with unknown implications that could include almost anything.
If lipid nanoparticles had been in widespread use in humans for 10 years at this point, I'd still prefer 80, but 10 years at this point, my reaction to the lack of clinical trials and the rapid deployment would be very different.
Right. And yeah, it is completely envisionable that you would have a platform in which delivery mechanism was on the shelf, and the question is, here's
Does
a new
this
emerging,
one work?
New emerging virus. Here's our plan for what to load into that thing.
Yep.
And that's a much more tractable question.
Absolutely. And so, again, let's hope these are everything that we are being told they are.